Every single day, more than 100,000 flights crisscross the globe. It's this incredible, massive dance happening miles above our heads, and it's all coordinated between almost 200 different countries. But have you ever stopped to think about how it actually works? How we get from a huge global agreement all the way down to the basic physics that lets a giant metal tube just hang in the air? Well, today, we're going to connect those dots. So, here's our flight plan for this explainer. We're going to start way up high with the global rules that keep the skies orderly. Then we'll drop down and talk about the universal language every pilot speaks. After that, it's all about physics, how planes fly, how they're steered, and finally, what makes a helicopter so different from a jumbo jet. Let's get into it. Okay, first things first. How in the world do you prevent total chaos up there? It's a story that really begins when flights started to shrink the planet, and suddenly everyone had to figure out how to share the air. And believe me, that was a huge challenge. I mean, just think about that for a second. Getting nearly 200 countries to agree on anything is next to impossible. So how did they pull it off for something as complex and high stakes as aviation, where one tiny mistake can be catastrophic? Well, it all goes back to the end of World War II. The war had just supercharged aviation technology. So, knowing that a big boom in global air travel was coming, 52 countries got together in Chicago back in 1944. And that meeting, the Chicago Convention, laid the groundwork for the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO, which officially kicked off in 1947. And today, that number has grown to 193 countries. That is a staggering level of international cooperation. It means that when a pilot takes off from Tokyo, they're playing by the same basic rule book as a pilot landing in Toronto. It's the system that makes everything else possible. Okay, so having a global rulebook is great, but it's pretty useless if people can't understand each other. So that agreement also created a kind of universal language for the skies, a set of codes and standards that every single pilot and air traffic controller on Earth knows. First up, every plane has a unique registration, kind of like a license plate on your car. We call it a tail number. It's a global system, and if you ever see a plane with a tail number that starts with the letter N, you know right away that it's registered in the United States. Now, what about time zones? Imagine the headache of planning a flight across the Pacific. It'd be a nightmare. So aviation came up with a brilliant solution. Everybody, everywhere uses one single time. It's called Coordinated Universal Time, or UTC. Pilots call it Zulu time. No confusion, no mistakes. Simple. And finally, airports. There are thousands of them. To keep them all straight, every airport gets a unique four-letter code. Now, you might know airports by their three-letter codes, like LAX or JFK, but to a pilot, they're KLAX and KJFK. That K at the beginning is a dead giveaway that it's an airport in the contiguous U.S. All right, so we've got the global rulebook and the universal language down. But none of that matters if we can't answer the big question. How does this massive, heavy machine even get off the ground and stay there? Well, it all comes down to one amazing force: lift. Lift is the magic, it's the upward force that fights against gravity. It's created by air moving over the wing. Now, a pilot can get more lift by tilting the wing up slightly into the oncoming air. We call that the angle of attack, or AOA. But, and this is a big but, you can only increase that angle up to a certain point. Go too far, and things go wrong. And this is a super common misconception. When a plane stalls, it has nothing to do with the engines quitting. A stall is purely an aerodynamic thing. It happens when that angle of attack gets too high and the air can't flow smoothly over the wing anymore. And here's the key. That critical angle never changes. It doesn't matter how heavy the plane is or how fast it's going. Exceed that angle and the wing stops flying. Okay, so the wings generate lift and keep the plane from falling out of the sky. Awesome. But how does a pilot actually steer the thing? Turn, climb, descend? It's all about three basic movements around three invisible lines. Just imagine three lines drawn right through the center of the airplane. There's one that runs from the nose to the tail, one from one wingtip to the other, and a third one going straight down from the top to the bottom. Literally every move a plane makes is just a rotation around one of these axes. So first up is roll. This is that banking motion you feel when you're turning. It's the plane rotating along that line from nose to tail. The pilot controls this with the ailerons on the wings. One goes up, the other goes down, and the plane just smoothly rolls into the turn.
Next, we have pitch.
This one's pretty simple. It's just pointing the nose of the plane up or down. That happens around the axis that goes from wingtip to wingtip, and it's controlled by the elevators on the tail. There's an old pilot saying that pitching the nose down makes the houses bigger. It's how you climb and descend. And last but not least, there's yaw. Yaw is the side-to-side movement of the plane's nose, kind of like a car skidding. It rotates around that vertical line, and it's controlled by the rudder on the tail. Now, this is really important. Roll is what banks the plane, but the rudder is used to keep the turn clean and coordinated, so the nose is always pointing exactly where you're going. So all these principles of lift and control we've been talking about, well, somebody had the brilliant idea to completely reimagine them. What happens if you take the idea of a wing, but instead of flying it forward through the air, you spin it around really fast? Well, you get vertical flight. Yeah, we're talking about helicopters and all the drones flying around these days. The basic idea is the same. Instead of one big wing that has to move forward, a rotorcraft has blades, which are really just small spinning wings. They create their own airflow, and that's what generates lift. So here's the fundamental difference in a nutshell. An airplane has to move forward to force air over its wings to make lift, but a helicopter or a drone, it can just sit there hovering, spinning its blades to make lift. So you could say a plane brings its wings to the air, while a helicopter brings the air to its wings. And there you have it. We've gone from huge international treaties all the way down to the nitty-gritty physics of how planes fly. We've covered roll, pitch, and yaw, which brings us to one last little puzzle for you. If banking with the ailerons is what actually turns the plane, then what's the rudder really for? Think about it. The answer is the secret to a perfect turn. Thanks for joining us.